Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Godcraft 6. At the end of May 2020 we are in Pentecost. That is a religious holiday for those of you that don't go to church regularly or anything like that. But Pentecost was basically the time when the Holy Spirit first made himself known to the disciples after Jesus' resurrection. So after Jesus was no longer with us on the planet and he left his representative, who is the Holy Spirit, which I'll go into another time. But these are Jesus' words taken from Matthew 24. Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all of these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All of these things are the beginning of sorrows. So I'm going to just stop it there a minute. And so that's pretty much where we're at. We're starting to see these beginnings of sorrows events. It talks about the 4 horsemen riding. I think they're all going to be pretty much riding at the same time. So we've got the black horse is famine. These aren't actual horses, you understand, or you might not understand actually, but the Bible talks a lot in allegory. That means using something easy to understand to help you understand a big picture. Because back in them days, I don't think there was a lot of education. So the people he was speaking to and wanted to get the message across, they weren't Bible scholars or so to speak. So yeah, the white horse is pestilence, black horse is famine, pale horse, often called riders. So you've heard of the Pale Rider, that's a film obviously. But however, the Clint Eastwood film is based on something biblical. Putting that aside, the pale horse is death, the red horse is war, black horse is famine, white horse is pestilence. So if you take those things as a collective, on top of the coronavirus, what we've got as we speak this weekend, from the top of my head, watching the news over the last couple of days, and the timing's interesting, which I'll go into later. So you've got America kicking off because the police over there have been picking on the coloured people. And that's turning in, I mean, we're only 2 days into it, but that could turn into something quite big. That's civil unrest. People have already been stuck at home because of the virus. We're still in the middle of that. So that could be like the last straw, as it were. People have had enough. All these things could be triggers to something worse. Trigger to something worse is what I'm getting at. It isn't going to be, I mean, if these trouble on the streets carry on, that's going to roll into the pale horse, which is death. Wars and rumours of wars, well, you could argue they've always been about, but I don't think anyone's got the after what's going on in the world, the virus, no one's going to have the energy to pick on other countries, if you want my opinion. So what I do want to focus on now is the pestilence side of it. So pestilence has been something God uses for his judgment, going right back into Moses' day. I mean, it's all back in the Old Testament, and you could well argue, well, that don't apply anymore, but I'm telling you, or I'm postulating, sorry, that you can just overlay the stories from the Bible and say, oh look, the timings, look at the timings, things seem to be happening around Jewish holidays, which basically are relevant dates. So I'm going to use it. Well, I'm going to use this weekend as an example. Pentecost, end of May, really relevant date in the Jewish calendar, and we've got all these things. Elon Musk has just gone up in his SpaceX thing. I'm not sure if that's relevant, but the rocket that he used was called the Dragon. So I'm watching him. Exactly the same timing as all the American stuff is starting to happen. We've got things in the news called murder hornets. I mean, this would come under pestilence. If they're known for what? If you don't know, they're known for basically wiping out the bee population. The bees are really important to all of the food chain, pretty much. So they're starting to creep into the news as being, I'm talking about the giant Asian hornet has been seen in parts of Europe. That's what's been on the news, but we don't know whether that'll just go away or carry on. But that could be one of the harbingers. What they do is they attack the bees' nests and they chop their heads off. They're a much larger insect than a bee. I think they're the size of a matchbox, kind of that size, where a honeybee would be that size. So that would be pestilence. Sticking on pestilence, you have the locusts. They're all over East Africa. I've been following that on the news. Good news source for them has been Russia Today, if you're interested. So if that gets worse, and they wipe out crops and vegetation and things like that, that'll be rolling on to people in need, even worse than it is now. People can't eat, and when people get hungry, and that's when wars kick off, or social disturbance happens. These are all things that God has used for his vengeance in the past. I'm just saying we should pay attention. That's all, because the signs, again, I talk about signs on the earth. These are signs on the earth. So I've covered the horsemen. A little bit about signs in the heavens. They've been going on all through May and early June. We've had asteroid and comet activity like you wouldn't believe in the last month. The very last Godcraft broadcast on the 4th of May, I switched the camera off and looked at the news, and there was a lump of rock that was really close to us, the size of a truck, I think they said, that no one saw coming. They just spotted it when it was directly over above us. And that's also one of God's things, if you like. We think we've got everything tracked up there, and then he'll throw one in, and so we all have to say, well, we didn't spot that one coming. So that points to the fact that he's in control, not us. Signs in the heavens still. Lots of talk about radio bursts coming from deep inside our galaxy that haven't been recorded before. They say it's intelligent. Obviously they don't know how to interpret it, I don't think, but they say it's intelligent. Black holes been in the news again. More about super Earths, more about exoplanets. If you don't know what an exoplanet is, well, we're one, I think. So it's the planets that they think are habitable around another star like ours, but they're calling them that are in the habitable zone. That means the scientists have looked at them and said, yeah, that could be an Earth like us. So the amount of them that they've recorded is hugely up, even in the last year. I think there's 23, something like from 10 to 23 objects of interest they're looking at as being Earth-like planets are up in the last year alone. So that is a sign in the heavens. Excuse the pause, looking at my notes. New black hole again. New black hole. I talked about another black hole in the last one, but this is a black hole that can be seen with the naked eye from Earth. Apparently, was the last one I talked about was that Hubble saw. So I don't think that's a sign in the heavens. Saturn's rings apparently are decreasing, or they're all made. The rings around Saturn are made up of ice. If you didn't know, huge lumps of rock. When I researched it a number of years ago, because I've been into this for a little while, the thickness of Saturn's rings is 23 miles. But the scientists are now saying it's decreasing. I don't know by how much. But there you go. So just maybe the whole universe is getting warmer. Maybe, just maybe it's not us causing global warming. I don't know if they've thought about that yet. So no doubt we're doing damage by the carbon, but if the rest of the universe is exhibiting signs of getting warmer, maybe we should be looking somewhere else for the answer. That's just me though, that's not science. That's just me postulating. Sign on the Earth. I'm going to wind the clock back now. November 2018. What I'm going to say about a sign on Earth, which was a big sign as far as I'm concerned. It was in a place in America called Paradise, a town called Paradise, near California, out in the sticks, I think. So I'm saying this was a mega fire they had. You can see all the documentaries on YouTube, but all the eyewitnesses just are describing apocalyptic scenes. The sun, for instance, the sun turned red. Day turned to night. There was so much. They all said it was like night time. So much smoke about. The whole town was engulfed. I think it started off an old electricity pylon, 6 o'clock in the morning. By midday, the whole town was ablaze. The documentary said, all the firemen said, I haven't seen fire move that fast ever. So this is apocalyptic scenes we're having on the Earth, and this is a harbinger. A harbinger is one of the signs, it's one of the warning, red flag, we're in the end times, start to read up. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And that was November 2018. Just for the statisticians, 153,000 acres burnt over 2 weeks. The whole town was ablaze within 4 hours of it starting. And you get 14,000 homes were destroyed and all ablaze by noon. And the locals trying to escape described it as an ember snowstorm, and they were saying Armageddon is here. And the speed of the fire was moving at, it said 80 football pitches a minute. So if you can visualize, that kind of speed, no wonder the firemen couldn't deal with it. But essentially, the sun was turned to red. You could imagine that would be the case. So again, it talks about the sun turning to red in the Bible. Overlay it from when it happened before to look it through that prism now and the period of time we're in today. That's what I'm saying. Another sign in the heavens, I suppose, been on the news recently. Earth's magnetic field is weakening. Whether that's caused by, who knows, but there's also a lot of stories about a pole shift. That's been in and out of the news for a number of years now. Yeah, that's a sign. whether the Earth's magnetic pole is going to flip every certain amount of years. You could say that's a sign as well, I suppose. But it's definitely a sign of things being turned. All right, let's put it another way: things being turned on their head. That's what it would mean. That's how I would interpret that, and that ties in with the coronavirus stuff, which also ties in with when it says in the Bible, the first will be last and the last will be first. So we're starting to have to appreciate how the lower people in society are holding up society and contributing and all that, like the nurses and the carers, more than the people that earn the top dollar. So that's kind of what we're starting to see and what's starting to unfold on the whole earth at the moment. I don't want to dwell on that too long. For those that are into Da Vinci, I'm not going on about the Da Vinci Code, the book now, but there's a sequence of 1514, Leonardo da Vinci painted something called the Deluge, which was based on a local mountain range. I think they had a landslide. He painted that as the Deluge as one of his paintings. Anyway, the news is that very same mountain slid again in 2012. So that's in my radar for starting to see the end time stuff. So I know we're winding the clock back nearly 10 years for that, but as I said, we might be some way into it at the moment. Brazil's been on the news in the last couple of days, reference the coronavirus. And interesting, the paradise thing is here again. So the virus is really bad in a hugely populated area of Brazil. One of the areas specifically that the news was focused on, again, is a place called Paradise City. And the virus is going up, whereas most of the world have got it under control now, it seems, tentatively. The virus is still going up hugely in this place called Paradise City. So again, I'm having to, for those of you that aren't into, paradise is a word that's used in the Bible a lot to describe a lot of things. So it's a flag, pay attention, to me anyway. The death rate's still climbing there. So if it's the whole world pretty much got it under control, and there's this place called Paradise, I'm just trying to make it really easy to understand. If people are sitting at home saying, well, it's paradise. So it's being brought out to us as something to pay attention to. The death rate's rising there, somewhere near Paradise, where it's fairly under control in the rest of the world. That's how I'm interpreting it. I might be wrong, of course, I'm not. But I believe the sin of doing nothing is a lot worse than the sin of inaccuracy. That's not my quote. I can't remember where I heard that now, but I like that. Signs on the Earth. First robots created using, well, the first biological robots have just been created using frog spawn, I believe. So that's an advance. It's to do with knowledge increasing as well. That's one of the signs of the end. Knowledge will hugely increase. So we're seeing more things all over the news. New creatures, new ways of looking at science finding out things that they didn't know before. The rate of that increase is up, and it's one of the signs. Winding right back to where I've talked about before in 2011 and 2012, both of them New Year's Eves, you had hundreds and thousands of seabirds drop out of the sky. That was in America, I believe, but the interesting thing is they were both exactly from one year to another. They decided to do that on the same date. Again, a red flag for end time stuff. It's all in here. Coronavirus. I've done some research into this, and there were some more research into this. And corona actually means crowning of an incoming king. So there you go. Interpret that how you like, but that's the meaning of that word. And by the way, we are just on a common sense version. If you don't believe anything of the Bible and how it relates, just on a common sense way of looking at the world, with this, even just the coronavirus on its own is the most apocalyptic thing that's definitely happened in my lifetime. But you know, already America has lost more people to this than they have in the last dozen wars they've been in alone, and that's only been here a couple of months. So that's that really for my rabbiting on. I just want to read you something about Peter's speech at Pentecost. And it will come to pass in the last days, God says, that I will pour out a portion of my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your young men shall see visions. Your old men shall dream dreams. Indeed, upon my servants and my handmaids I will pour out a portion of my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy, and I will work wonders in the heavens above, and the signs on the earth below, blood, fire, and cloud of smoke. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the coming of the great and splendid day of the Lord. So, I mean, that's just a little piece from Peter's speech at Pentecost, but it covers a few things that I've implied. Now, if you can, just want to wrap up shortly, but I've got a couple of things to zoom in on this week. I have indeed. Can you zoom over here? Or do you want me to? I can come to you. There you go. So that's you getting that okay? Is it full screen? Okay, so that was a few years back, but that was oh, here you go then. That's this is very much an alive universe we live in. So there you go. Until next time, God bless you all.